Well, we start where it began. This is Barberton, and the statue of Chief Hoppekin goes back to the early history of the city when Native Americans first occupied this area, the Delaware people. It has been a theme throughout my life. It's been something I was interested in since elementary school at St. Augustine's. That's also where I had the opportunity to make my first performance. In grade 6, I was the Master of Ceremonies for Inside Catholic Schools on Channel 5. Began a lifetime of talking out loud. But more importantly, this spot across the street, just a few feet away from here, is the bus stop where I arrived at 6:30 every morning during my 4 years of high school, taking the bus to Akron, to downtown Akron, and to sort of take that adventure outside of this city that was settled by so many Eastern European communities. Barberton has been a special place and still is, and it is where I got my start. Food is an important part of every family's history, and my food history starts right here. Belgrade Gardens, when my family used to come here for those $1 chicken dinners. I always say that fried chicken is the mother's milk for any child born in Barberton, chicken capital of the world. But it was a place where our family got together, and even today, even post open heart surgery, I still allow myself one fried chicken dinner each year, the cholesterol be damned. This is the spot where a whole lot of people exited that Kenmore Barberton bus in 1961, the gates of the B.F. Goodrich Company. You could still smell rubber in the air in 1961. The factories were still going pretty much full blast. 70,000 people worked in these factories at their peak, and then beginning in 1970, Akron lost 30,000 jobs. Right across the street was the Silvertown Cafe, along with some other bars. This is the place where the guys getting off of work would go for a shot and a beer before they went home. I'm particularly proud of what we've accomplished in downtown Akron over the last 10 years. But when I was riding that bus in the 1960s, O'Neill's and Polsky's were still vibrant department stores where everybody shopped, and downtown hadn't yet started to fade. Well, downtown was very different, too. Right behind me here, there was no Cascade Plaza. It was still a dream of John S. Knight's to try to find a way to do the first major redevelopment project in Akron since the Second World War. What there was here was Howard Street, though, and that bus would come down Main and make a left onto Howard, going diagonally right over there to Market Street. And one of the guys on the bus would always say, and every morning he would say the same thing, "Let me off at the house of the Lord." It was his way of joking because there was a men's clothier store there called Lord's, and every day he got off right here at the Flatiron Building, which was a landmark in downtown Akron. Howard Street was great. Schumacher's grocery store with a coffee grinder and homemade peanut butter, something that's still continued by the peanut shop today. This particular landmark has been important to me for 50 years. Well, Chrissie Hynde wrote the song, "My City Was Gone," but actually my high school is gone. St. Vincent's was torn down to make way for a new community center, but if you're old enough, you remember where you were on November 22nd, 1963. I was right here on the third floor in English class when we got news over the PA system that John F. Kennedy had been assassinated. It was a shock to the world and certainly to a Catholic school who had so much affection for the Kennedys. When I went to St. Vincent High School, I thought that band was going to be my future. I was president of the band. It was my first real leadership position, and I thought that I would someday become a high school band director. Colby Hall used to have a giant arch right in the center. And in the summer of 1965, I joined the summer band right out of high school, thinking that I would be the next great band director. But I took one look at the radio station that was located in Colby Hall and knew that I had sort of found the place where I wanted to be for a while. I became the general manager of WAUP radio station. When I started there, we were broadcasting 4 hours a day when school was in session, and by the time I was a senior and manager of the station, we were broadcasting every day of the year for 12 hours a day, including doing sports games. I learned a lot here. It was the time of the Vietnam War, and a lot of my fraternity brothers were flunking out and going right overseas to be in the war. So most of us kept our grades up. We sought our draft deferments, and it became an era of real passion. I remember being here in the summer of 1968, loading big 2-inch videotapes on reel-to-reel machines for student classes, and watching the Democratic National Convention, watching the violence that was taking place in the streets of Chicago. And all of us were motivated to try to create a better world. After spending a year in Syracuse, I returned to WHLO Radio, and one of the first stories I did was a murder case. I was there the night that they captured him up here on Exchange Street, and then covered the trial here in the Summit County Courthouse. Later, I covered the Carl Lamont Bayless murder trial, a very sensational case, and visited with him on death row, and that documentary on death row won a National Associated Press Award. But the law interested me, so I was going to law school at night while I was doing the radio job during the day, and trying to do stories about legal subjects. My documentary on Inside the Grand Jury won a National Silver Gavel from the American Bar Association, and it was really reaffirming for me that I had struggled with whether or not to return to Akron or not. Maybe New York or Los Angeles or Chicago, a larger market, would have been better to do the work I wanted to do. But you can do great things in Akron, and winning this award reaffirmed that for me. I then ended up practicing law for 25 years in this same courthouse, and it was for those 25 years the way I made my living. It was the way I made my living for 25 years across the street, but it wasn't my life. I became president of the Summit County Historical Society and got involved in the Akron Community Foundation. And then in 1987, when Ned Oldham returned to Akron following a meeting of patent lawyers in Washington at the National Inventors Hall of Fame, he had this idea that maybe it could be relocated to Akron. We were really down on our heels in 1987, and what Akron really needed was a shot in the arm, and that shot in the arm came in the form of Don Plusqualik's election as mayor in 1987, and that same year, 11 months later, allowing us to become the home of the National Inventors Hall of Fame. We never did realize all the promise that we had hoped at that point, but boy, we sure did get a great substitute. Here at the National Inventors Hall of Fame STEM School, it's so exciting to see what they're doing inside. It changed Akron. It gave people something to think about. When we were named the site of the Inventors Hall of Fame, that's what launched the construction of the John S. Knight Convention Center. It was the beginning of the renaissance of downtown Akron and the city at large. And as memorable as that night was when we dedicated the National Inventors Hall of Fame, called Inventure Place, in 1995, nothing has given me more pleasure over the last 10 years than this place right here. Lock 3 was a concept that Mayor Plusqualik had come up with, but nobody quite knew what to do with this space. And then we bought a stage, we bought a pavilion, suddenly we had people coming to concerts. We formed the Chris Kindle Market in 2004 so that we could do something really significant with our sister city of Chemnitz. And here we are, 10 years later, and we've brought almost 2 million people to this place, summer and winter. Nothing gives me more pleasure now than sitting on the lawn here on a summer's evening along with 4,000 or 5,000 of my best friends, listening to music and coming together as a community. It's become kind of the central park of Akron, and it's become something of which we are immensely proud. Not all of our meals were chicken dinners, though. For any special occasion in the family, we always went to Giacomini's on Exchange Street. And Giacomini's survives today in the form of Papa Joe's down in the valley, and here we are. And this is the 1932 Express. It's one of my favorites. Great chicken livers and mushrooms and pasta. Giacomini's has been a family favorite for my entire life, and I'm glad they're still in business and still serving the same meals today. Sometime around 1968 or so, I was 21 years old, and our routine was to go to Kent to drink, but we'd always stop first at the New Era Cafe just off of East Market Street on Maslin Road. We'd get a short beer for about 50 cents, and then we'd go to Kent, and on the way back, we'd stop here for coffee and strudel to sober up and to be in shape to go home. Well, I never stopped coming to the New Era Cafe. It figured prominently in the 2000 documentary that I did. And even today, we like to come here for the chicken paprikash. And of course, you can't finish a meal at the New Era without their famous strudel, which is still made by Mom, who started here in about 1940. She's still in the kitchen. She's 83 years old, and she still makes the best strudel in town. I guess there's a certain amount of symmetry to my life. It started with a statue of an American Indian, and we're going to end with a statue of an American Indian. A man from Dayton came to us at the Historical Society 15 years ago wanting to mark the actual trail of the Portage Path, one of the most ancient landmarks in the North American landscape. I chaired that event, and after spending $400,000 of his money, we were able to build these two statues created by a Native American artist, Peter Jones, who lives on the Cattaraugus Reservation in upstate New York, and 50 trail markers in between the two terminus points. It was a project that I hope gives some sense of, to children especially, that people have been here for 10,000 years. I guess that's the nature of the symmetry as well. We continue to enliven this place that has been populated for so long. I like the quote by E.B. White. I arise each morning intending to change the world. I arise each morning hoping to enjoy the world. It makes it difficult to plan the day. But as difficult as it has been, it's been most interesting as well. Akron has always been inventive, industrious, and inspired.